What's up, guys? Andrew Ivins here with 24/7 Sports. I'm joined by my man, Chris Hummer. And today we have released our way too early 2022 mock draft. It's got some quarterbacks in it. And the name at the top is Spencer Rattler. We have him projected to go to the Houston Texans. And Chris, I didn't even give you a chance to provide much input because me and you went back and forth on these picks, and I just went with Rattler right off the bat. I think you can make a case for some other guys. So, just your initial thoughts on this quarterback class in 2022, and do you have Spencer Rattler as QB1 right now?
Well, first, I want to say off the bat, you mentioned way early, but we're guaranteeing this to be fully accurate. There's no way we could be wrong about any of these projections a year out. But I think we both probably agree. I also had Spencer Rattler as my number one quarterback in this class. I think he's going to go number one overall as quarterbacks tend to do. And Spencer's a guy I've liked for a really long time. I think we both saw him at the opening his junior year in Elite 11. He kind of lit things up, kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. He didn't go to many camps, kind of as the underclassman, but he was a guy at Pinnacle High School in Arizona that was kind of lighting things up. And he was excellent as a true freshman, or as a redshirt freshman last year. He had some growing pains. He actually got benched versus Texas. I think people forget that. He lost his job for about a quarter. But after that moment, he kind of came back and he was great. He's a guy who excels kind of off platform. He's forced there. He's excellent on time. I think that Oklahoma wide receiver group and offensive line is going to be even better next year. And if that's the case, given Lincoln Riley's kind of offense and Spencer Rattler's talent, I think he's a slam dunk number one guy in this class, at least when we're projecting this far out.
You mentioned the off-plane throws. That seems to be the new craze with the NFL pro days. I see high school kids, class of 2025 quarterbacks making all these off-plane, off-balance throws like they're Zach Wilson. No, that's one of the reasons why I also have Spencer ahead of Sam Howell. I just think his dual threat capabilities, with what we're seeing in the NFL these days, you got to be elusive, got to be able to throw on the run. And what I also like about him is, look, man, he's playing for Lincoln Riley. This guy has produced two quarterbacks that have gone number one overall in Kyler Murray, who's with the Arizona Cardinals, Baker Mayfield, with the Cleveland Browns. So he knows the thing. He's also got Jalen Hurts in the league, or I guess that's part of his quarterback tree. Let's just circle to Howell. I mean,
what's crazy is if Spencer goes to the league in 2022 and starts right away, Lincoln will have is that 12% of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL within the last 5 years, just from Oklahoma. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're gonna introduce Sam Howell though, and I've got a question for you. I'm pretty high on Sam Howell. I think there's some concerns there, but you have one particular concern that has to do with this thing right here. Can you talk a little bit about your problem with Sam Howell's hand size?
I was going to bring that up. Thankfully we have measurements from the All-American Bowl in that check-in. I was looking at him. I think this was looking last year. Sam Howell actually has some smaller hands. So if you subscribe to the theory that if you're an NFL quarterback and you need big hands, this would be a guy that's going to move down the draft boards, because I think it's either 8 or 9 inch hands. They're definitely on the smaller side. But no, look, I think when you talk about Sam Howell, he is one of the best in the country when it comes to attacking the deep third of the field and pushing it down the field. I was kind of digging into Pro Football Focus, their numbers, and both Spencer and Sam Howell kind of led the country in deep shots. So I really like that aspect about him. I think he's a gamer. I just wish maybe he was a little bit better of an athlete, but no question he's got that arm talent.
Yeah, I really like Sam as well. I always have. You're gonna hear the name Baker Mayfield thrown out 100 times in regards to Sam Howell, because not only they play a little bit like each other, they look like each other. If you've ever seen Sam with his helmet off, it's kind of uncanny. But he does have some vulnerabilities as kind of a prospect that I think somebody like Spencer Rattler doesn't have. And it's not really size; it's the athletic traits that you talked about, the hand thing, which is a thing. I think Jake Fromm famously dropped in the draft partially because of his hand size. And Spencer just also plays in a system under Phil Longo, who's one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. That makes things really easy for the quarterback. I think NFL evaluators are going to have some questions about how that kind of transitions to the NFL, but that's obviously not the end all be all. We saw Robert Griffin come out of the year and shoot and be the number 2 overall pick about a decade ago at this point. So it's not the end of the world. But Sam, I think Sam's spot kind of in the top 2 quarterbacks is a little more vulnerable than Spencer Rattler, in my opinion. But I guess it's a good way to transition to some of the other quarterbacks in this class. Who do you think might kind of jump into that consideration for the first or second best quarterback in this class when you look at the rest of them?
We have three other quarterbacks in this mock draft. Number 5 overall, I think we had JT Daniels. And then two guys that I think are going to be the hot names. One of those is Carson Strong out of Nevada, a big 6'4", prototypical NFL passer, kind of like an old school passer now. Just he's not the most mobile of guys, but he can make all those throws. I know, Chris, you watched a ton of Nevada Wolfpack football. You're a big fan of him. He's going to have 2 showcase games, plays Cal and Kansas State this season. And then the other guy is the hot name is Malik Willis, the Auburn transfer that is at Liberty. Those seem to be other guys that could challenge for these pole positions. I'm not completely sold just yet on Malik Willis. Really do like the fact, I mean, he almost ran for 1,000 yards, and he's a fun electric playmaker. But I'm interested to see Carson Strong. I think he's maybe, I'm not saying he's the Trey Lance of this year, but the guy that comes from outside the Power 5 and has a chance to go in the top 10. What do you think?
I really like Carson Strong, and I don't probably watch it too much Nevada football as people on the West Coast, but I'm a big Jay Norvell fan. I covered him a little bit at Texas, and he was at Oklahoma before that. He's done a really excellent job in Nevada in a short time. And Carson Strong he didn't come out of nowhere last year. He always was a guy that had the frame, but he's gotten bigger since he arrived in Nevada. He definitely has an NFL arm. He can hit throws to all 3 levels with ease. And while there are some mobility concerns, I don't think he's going to blow anybody away with his ability to kind of work out of the pocket if needed. He is one of those guys that can make every throw in the book, and he's a really intriguing NFL guy. And I'm higher on Carson Strong right now than I am on Malik Willis. I think Malik Willis has a lot to show. I think he is the flashy guy, as you kind of described him, with his dynamic dual threats abilities. But there are some throws that you don't have to make in Hugh Freeze's system that you're going to have to make in the NFL. And I think that's something people should probably pay attention to. I know there are going to be coaches that are going to be like, we can teach him to kind of read the field. We can teach him to make these throws. But that is something I would be a little concerned with Malik Willis. But I think we should talk for a second about JT Daniels, though. Like, JT Daniels, people forget, was the other 5-star in the class with Justin Fields and with Trevor Lawrence. He reclassified, actually, moved up a year, and was kind of ranked as the 5-star, as the third one in that group. I'm just wondering, how do you kind of feel about him, with him going 5th overall in our mock draft right now?
I think I need to see it to believe it. I know, we were going back and forth on the picks, and you're the one that kind of endorsed JT Daniels. Look, he was hurt for most of the 2020 season, came on strong those final 4 games when he did play. I want to see what he does here in 2021, and we're going to have a good idea of his ceiling week 1, Labor Day weekend, when Georgia faces off with Clemson. So I'm in wait and see mode with him. But, another intriguing option in that 2022 group.
I really like JT, first of all, because I think he has a lot of traits that you can't teach. He's really, really sharp. He's really smart. He sees the field. He's also in a system that's going to translate to the NFL pretty well, with Todd Monken formerly being there as an offensive coordinator with the Bucs. But I just think JT's going to have a really big year. I know 2 of his best receivers got hurt this spring, so that's not really a great thing. But he's got a good offensive line. He's got a really deep running back room behind him. He's still got some really talented young receivers. And I think JT is just a guy who's the opportunity to kind of blow up this year. And we're going to finally see what we kind of saw from him as a recruit. Before we go, is there anybody kind of off the radar in a mock draft? I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. Like, I think he could emerge as a first-round pick. Is there anybody else you have your eye on?
Can I toss out a non-quarterback for you?
Yeah, please.
Jaleel Billingsley. I don't think we're getting enough hype for him in these early 2022 mocks. I'm really high on this guy. He's the Alabama tight end. They actually had him returning kicks at one point last season. I think a lot of people kind of forget about that. Look, the tight end position is becoming so fascinating in all of, not only college football, but the NFL. Everyone wants athletes. They want to find a freak like Kyle Pitts. I think Jaleel Billingsley is going to have a monster season in Tuscaloosa. Look, they lose Jalen Waddle. They lose Devontae Smith. Yes, they have some other receivers there, but I think he's going to be a guy that by week 5 or 6 of the season, everyone knows his name. So I would not be surprised if, 51 weeks from now, he's kind of penciled in, or we're talking about how he went in the first round.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more 11 and 12 personnel from Alabama than we've seen recently. Tight ends is strength on that team, and Jaleel Billingsley is one of those guys. But either way, we're really far out from 2022, and it's a really intriguing kind of crop of players. I'd also throw Keaton Slovis from USC in that quarterback group you were discussing earlier. So it'll be really fascinating to see how that shakes out over the next 12 months.
All right. Well, there's 10 names. We got 22 more in that mock draft. So make sure to check it out at 247sports.com.